Tuesday it is. That's a great thing. My wife and I, Jenny, we're not big Valentine's Day celebrants or anything like that, but we did one of our first time together. It was on Valentine's Day. She came to the computer lab where I was working and pretended to have a computer problem. You can ask her about that. How on Wednesday we were saying that our relationship started with a lie. But when we were dating, one of the places that we went to is House on a Rock. Have you guys been there? Some of you have heard of it? Yeah, great. All right, so House on a Rock is one of those tourist attractions that you have to go at least once. Okay, it's this crazy house. It's in Spring Green, Wisconsin. Am I right? Spring Green, Wisconsin? Yeah, okay. Spring Green, Wisconsin, and it is, let's just say it's exotic. It's unusual. It has stuff inside, all sorts of stuff inside. But it is built on a rock. Built on a rock. And the reason I'm mentioning is because Jesus talks about, actually he ends his sermon by pointing to a building on a rock. We have been going through Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, which describes the account of Jesus preaching to a larger crowd up on a hillside. People call that the Sermon on the Mount. And in Matthew chapter 7, if you have your Bibles with you, turn with me. And while you're turning, I just want to say a shout out to the people online. Haley, if you're watching online, I know you're still sick, my dear. Hang in there. We're praying for you. And I understand you have some Girl Scout cookies to sell to these people. Hey, y'all, buy Girl Scout cookies from Haley. Or was it Haley that's selling it? Or was it Amelia? I'm not sure. Well, one of you two. Anyway, we're thinking of you. I know you're home. And we're ready to buy some Girl Scout cookies. So listen, you might see emails or you might see an online post on our Facebook private page about buying Girl Scout cookies from one of our own. Do that. I know I plan to buy them, and y'all are going to eat it because I won't be able to. All right, did you find it? Was that enough time for you guys? Because remember, while I was talking, you're supposed to find Matthew chapter 7. All right, Matthew chapter 7 and verse 24. Here's what it says. Matthew chapter 7, starting with verse 24. And Jesus concludes his sermon with the following words. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on a rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the wind blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the stream rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jenny and I were in Florida not that long ago, there was a gentleman there, a guide, that was explaining about the mangrove trees and how they grow. But then he said, all these bridges that were going under, you can't just put a bridge in willy-nilly in Florida. You actually have to go, and I forget how many feet he said down, like crazy amount of feet down, I don't know, 50, 100, a lot, until you get to bedrock. Because otherwise, if you just put the bridge and you put the pylons in the dirt, it's going to move. You have to reach bedrock, which is very, very far down. So even a tiny little bridge that cars go over, it costs buku amount of dollars because you have to get to bedrock. And that's what Jesus is saying here. So the first things that I want to do is I want to cover a little bit about the text. What is the text saying? I love talking about the text in context. So what is it talking about? Well, the first thing that Jesus is mentioning is about hearing and doing. And I put something in place where I called hearing, knowing, and doing. See, because the way we talk about knowing and hearing in our modern context is slightly different. Let me give an example. There's the football game that Tom mentioned, and somebody told me who's playing. By the way, do you guys know who's playing? Yeah, not the Packers. Yeah, that's for sure, not the Packers. Well, so they told me who's playing, and I heard it. But did I remember it? Nope. So at this moment in time, I have actually no clue who's playing. I know, shameful. But I heard it. And Jesus is saying, somebody who hears these words of his, the sermon of his. It's more than that. It's more than just hearing it. It's more than just hearing the teams and saying, yeah, I heard it. It's knowing. It's taking from the ears to putting in the brain. And then he's moving forward and saying, it's not just putting in your brain, but it's actually doing it, putting it into practice. See, and the way they talked about knowledge in ancient times, it was a lot more physical. If I was to tell you that I know how to play the violin, it's not just mental knowledge. It's not just theoretical understanding. I actually know how to grab a fiddle and play it. Some of you have heard me, right? So I actually know, not mental knowledge, but I actually know how to move the fingers and how to make the sound in such a ways that all of you are not going to go, woo, okay? So knowing is more than just knowledge to pass a test. It's not just knowledge. It's a knowledge in a practical way. And that's really what Jesus is saying. He's saying, look, if you hear these words and they stick with you in such a way that you know the words, in a way that you actually begin to put them into practice, that you live those out, you're better off. You're better off. The other thing that I want to mention about what Jesus said is the observation that everybody is building. Everybody's building something. All of the people mentioned here are building something. But you know what it is, with buildings, right? Location, 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 right? Where are you building? When we were purchasing this building, people were saying, oh man, this is a great location. Well, it is. It's by the road. It's beautiful to look at. Location, location, location. And Jesus confirms that. He's saying, look, when you build, because you all are building something, when you build, it matters where, and it matters what holds you up. It matters how you build your life and how this life building of yours, it matters where it sits. It matters the foundation that it has. So your life foundation, it's critical. It's critical. And knowing the fact that you are building something, your life is building something, you have to ask yourself, what am I building? With the youth group, a few years back, I took them out in a park. And this park by us, Lisbon Community Park, has woods. And so I took them in the woods. I said, hey, let's build something. Let's build something. So what we actually did, we took long sticks and we put them in a little triangle like this, and we built something. And then after, it's like, hey, let's have a lesson underneath this little structure that we built. Okay? And we talked, and we had a powerful, powerful discussion. But that little structure didn't survive very long. We went back there, the following year, and, It didn't have the good foundation. It didn't have good material. If you want, go downstairs in the basement and see the bell tower foundation. It is bedrock. It is solid. What is your life built on? What's your foundation? Is your foundation the solid bank account? Woo! I got a credit card. Is your foundation built on your family? I love my family. But are they your foundation? Job? Self-identity? What is your foundation? Because unless the foundation are these words of mine, Jesus calls them, and unless this foundation is put into practice, these words of His are put into practice, chances are, no matter what you fill in, including family, chances are that sand, it's got to be a little longer lasting than that. That's what Jesus is saying. Let me put this away before you're all eyeing it a little bit there. I see you watching. I see you. It's in my pocket now. All right, here's the next thing that happens in our story. What happens is, Jesus mentioned rain, floods, and wind. And here's the thing. Rain, floods, and wind, they're coming. And some of you have already gone through rain, floods, and wind. Your life will have calamities. And Jesus knows this because He created a perfect world, and then after this perfect world was deceived by the evil one, and humanity went with that rebellion, Jesus knows that in this world, who is no longer as it ought to be, in this world there will be calamities. In this world, you're going to have natural calamities. In this world, you're going to have opposition from the dark forces that don't like you very much. So in this world, it is guaranteed that you will have, metaphorically, rains and floods and winds. Some of you are going through that right now. One of my wind, rain, and flood today is after working on digging and all that, right in here, right in this area, it's like, ow, it hurts. And my body is telling me, you cannot do certain things. And it's a calamity. It's a little calamity in the grand scheme of things. I mean, there's people that are going through horrific things. Earthquake. I mean, have you read some of those powerful stories? It just broke my heart. It breaks my heart to see people suffering. So if it breaks my human heart, can you just imagine breaking God's heart? And Jesus is saying, look, in this world, until I repair this world, and until I have the patience so that, I don't just destroy everybody, right? I have the patience, and when the time comes, I will repair this world. In order for the world to be repaired, I had to do some big things first. So His sacrifice even allows the world to be repaired, but until then, you will go through calamities. You will have opposition. So it's not a matter if the winds will come. It's a matter of when. And here's the thing. When the winds come, when the calamity shows up, you better have bedrock in your life. Because if you have sand, Jesus talks about a big crash. If you've ever seen a big building crash, it's scary. When I was little, about 7 or 8, I lived through a 7.2 earthquake back in Romania. And it was the scariest thing. The earth moved. It just, there's thousands of people that died and this, without homes. Bedrock. Without the words of Jesus put into living practice, you are as secure as a house on a sand dune. Practicing the way of Jesus results in strength and survival in the storm. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you, I've hit a nerve close to home. You know exactly what those storms feel like. And unless you have that foundation, there's no hope. That's what Jesus is saying. And he's saying, trust me. Trust me. And that's what the text says. So let's now think about, okay, so how do we begin to take this text and let's talk a little bit about practice. We knowing the words of Jesus, hearing the words of Jesus, and then knowing the words of Jesus, and then practicing the words of Jesus. And I have to, when I was preparing for what I'm going to say to you this morning, I started thinking, what prevents us? What stops us from practicing? What is it that says, no, don't do that? And I'm thinking, when I hear the word practice, the first thing that comes to my brain is having to practice the fiddle when I was little, having to practice my violin. Now, let me tell you, when I was little, I didn't like to practice my violin. It's hard, and it's hard to hold, and all the other kids are playing outside, and they're playing soccer, football. They're, not American football. Football, what is it? Okay, hang on a second. Tangent. American football? Does the foot touch the ball? Oh, please. Oh, please. All right, enough of that. Okay. All my friends were playing real football with a foot. Yeah, you all Americans call it soccer. Imagine that. But there I was being stuck, having to practice my violin. Now, when the other thing that I figured, hey, it's Super Bowl Sunday practice, I'm thinking that there's all these athletes that you're all going to see if you're going to watch that kind of thing. You're going to see these athletes compete with one another. Chances are they had to practice. And chances are the coach told them when to practice, how to practice, where to practice. And I brought my whistle with me today. Don't blow it because I'm going to scare Bear. Earlier this morning, I blew my little whistle here because y'all have to practice, and I'll be the coach. And I blew this thing, and the little bear, the little doggy named Bear, freaked out and, was all shaking and everything. He's sleeping. He's sleeping through my sermon. My goodness. Okay, this holy bear is sleeping through my sermon. All right, so let me run with you guys about the kinds of things that are preventing all of us from practicing. And the first thing that I could remember and try to say, what? There's a lot of people that are prevented from practicing because they forgot. They forgot. Oh, coach, I'm sorry. I forgot there was practice on Thursday. Okay? People just forget. Oh, I forgot. Oh, hey, didn't you say you're going to show up on Wednesday Bible study? Oh, yeah, Pastor, I forgot. I'm like, okay. I forgot. So forgetting, it's one of those enemy tactics that says, oh, look at this other stuff. Oh, it's so wonderful, and look at this, look at that. Oh, don't pay attention to that nagging voice that says, oh, aren't you supposed to be going to practice? Oh, yeah, I forgot. And when we forget, my friends, when we forget, you know what tells us? Forgetfulness tells us that it's so unimportant that it does not enter our mind. It does not enter our mind until it's too late. Oh, I forgot. My favorite is, go clean your room. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Well, how? The room is like filled with stuff, unorganized. How could you forget? It's right there. That was a long time ago when the kids were at home. Now we're almost empty nesters. That's wonderful. I forget too. I forgot. The mind is so preoccupied with other things that you forget. And you forget to practice. You forget to open the Bible. And you look back on, it's Sunday. I'm like, oh man, I haven't read the Bible at all this week. What happened? Well, I just forgot. I just forgot. The second thing that prevents people from going to practice, attend this practice, it's, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I love the when people, ask, well, how you been? Oh, busy. Busy. I'm too busy. I remembered to go to practice. I remembered that it's practice day and I should be there, but there is other stuff that I had to do. And if the first thing talks about the unimportance of practice, yeah. The second thing talks about priorities. I'm too busy. My life is so busy with this, that, and this other thing that I am too busy to practice. I am too busy to show up. I am too busy to call a friend. I am too busy to spend time with the Lord. I am too busy to be part of a community of faith. Something else came up. It broke my heart this week. I was supposed to see a young person to do some of this good work of laying the foundation. And it broke my heart. I had a no-show. Now, if you know anything about ministry, that's part of the course. Okay, that's part of the course. But it broke my heart. Something was busy. Something else was more important than the foundation. And Jesus is saying, look, 21st century Americans, followers of Jesus, not only know my words, hear them, but know them, integrate them in your life, and don't be too busy. Don't be too busy. Because that, all of a sudden, as you're building and building, you realize that the foundations that you've put in place have not yet reached bedrock. You're still in the sand. So when the calamity comes, when the winds come, you're gonna fall apart. There's an expression that people whose Bibles fall apart have lives that don't. Did you get that? People whose Bibles fall apart have lives that don't. And I know enough about our community and the world and everything, and I see people, my world is falling apart. Are we seeing crashes? Yes. But what's your foundation? Because if it's sand, if you haven't cracked this thing, chances are you're gonna crash. My favorite expression with the young people is like, oh man, what happened, on Friday night? Oh yeah, I did this and I crashed. Or I binged watched, fill in the blank of or whatever show, and then I crashed. And then Jesus says, no, don't crash. Don't crash. I have a better way. I got a better way. So, I forget to, whatever. I'm too busy. Yeah, I know it's there, but you know what? It's for you, not for me. I'm too busy. I got to do all this stuff. And the last one that I want to point out is that it's too extreme. I heard people like, well, pastor, what do you want me to be? You want me to be a pastor like you? Well, yeah, why not? I mean, sure. But you know what? This Bible stuff and this religion stuff is good, and I think it's amazing, and, I'll make some time for it, but let's not take it to the extreme, people. Come on. I mean, look, I got to live. Or another favorite expression is like, well, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this, but come on, in real life, am I really supposed to love this person? I'm like, well, Jesus is talking about real life. Not talking about extremes. Jesus is the extreme. So let me see if I can help you with two ways of thinking about this. All right? So when I think bedrock, you probably are thinking, solid rock, granite, something tough, right? I want you to put in your mind the following image. And the image is you take some of that rock, and you make them into little pebbles, and then you use the little pebbles to do decorative rock around your home. Right? It's still granite or whatever it is. I don't know rocks, people, so don't hold me because it's granite. But whatever, it's hard stone, right? But they're pebbles decorating your home instead of the rock that's sustaining your foundation. So are we talking about decorative rock, or are we talking about bedrock? And when people approach Christianity and faith life, sometimes we think that, it's more like decorative rock. It's a nice add-on to my life. It's a nice add-on to my life because it helps me. It makes my life complete. It's so wonderful just to come and hear a lovely message and leave. And oh my goodness, look how wonderful it is. I have a good job, good family. I go to church and we have a beautiful place and it's decorative. It's an add-on. Versus the very foundation of your life. Here's another way to think of it. Another image. I love fragrances. Smells so wonderful, right? It's just, right? The fragrance is just beautiful. You walk through the garden and it hits you and you go, this is beautiful fragrance. And there's the idea of fragrance and the other of oxygen. Life-sustaining oxygen that will just sustain your life. And I imagine individuals in the rubble feeling, I need oxygen. I don't need fragrance. I need oxygen. And sometimes we think of our religion and our following Jesus as a fragrance, when in reality it's actually oxygen. It's the thing that will make you live. And without it, you die. Not fragrance. Christianity is not fragrance. It's pure life and oxygen. Then the moment you say, well, you know what? I think I can live without oxygen. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, if you do not have oxygen, what do you think? Do you think your life will not come crashing down? You realize that people that don't take this to extremes, they still have the same calamities. You know that. It's not that their life is hunky-dory. It's not that their life is devoid of problems. It's the fact that in the midst of problems, in the midst of the tornado, in the midst of the calamity, they have a bedrock. And in that bedrock, they clutch their foundation in. They say, Jesus, help me through this wind and storm and floods. It's not fragrance. And Jesus is saying, look, you hear these words? You hear these words? You understand these words? You're taking them in? Now we gotta make it as part of your entire life. It's not too extreme at all. Oxygen is not too extreme. It sustains. So yeah, we can apply this. 2,000-year-old words from the King of Kings we can apply to today. So what can you do about it? What can you practically do? I'm sure your brain is already working some things that you can actually practically do, but let me suggest 3 things. The first thing that I'm going to suggest is change your environment. Here's what I mean by that. It is so easy for the dark forces to distract us, and we can forget. It is so easy. It is so easy for us to go, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. I forgot to open my Bible. Where's your Bible? Let me see here. Where's my Bible? Oh, I found it. It's here. I found it. Change your environment. Maybe put it somewhere where you're going to see it all the time. Change your environment. Maybe put some cards. You know, I make my little notes here on my sermon on a little card like this. That way you guys don't have to stay here for 3 hours while I blab on and on and on. Okay, so take a little card like this. Write something from here on the card and put it on your mirror. Put it on your fridge. Change your environment so that you stumble upon it. It's in your way. You see it. It's part of who you are. It's put it somewhere. Change your environment in such a way that you cannot but see it. Change the environment. And some of you may have to change the environment a little more drastic than that. It's more than just reminders. It's maybe not going to the places that you make you forget. Because some places, I don't know about you, but some places make me forget about who I am. Some places remind me of who I am. I walk in here and somebody says, hey, Pastor Florin, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm a pastor. Oh my gosh, yes, I'm a pastor. Hey, moron, you're a pastor now. Yes, oh my goodness, that's my identity. Lord Jesus, help me. Because my brain and my heart and my tendencies are so far away from you. Lord, bring me back. Every single day, change your environment. Change your environment. Say, Lord Jesus, here I am. I want to be next to you. I'm shedding too, aren't I? Yeah, let's put this guy away. Here. Somebody that knows how to sew, help me out here afterwards. Change the environment in such a way that you are constantly reminded who you are and what the kind of practice you have to do. Here's another practical thing that you can do. Not only change your environment, but adapt your schedule. Adapt your schedule. Now, parents, y'all who are parents, you know what I'm talking about? Now, those of you that have parents, you know what I'm talking about too, don't you? So you don't have to be a parent, you just have to have parents. I think all of you are in the same boat. Okay, so here's the thing. Parents do all sorts of things for their kids. You adapt your schedule based on the kids. Oh my goodness, it's nap time for the little ones. All right, we got to change the schedule. We can't do this and that. So you change, you adapt your schedule. All right, they're not little anymore. They're big. They're teenagers. Oh my gosh, we got to change our schedule because normally we have dinner at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, but now rehearsal starts at 6 o'clock, so we can't have dinner at the same time. So you adapt your schedule. You adapt to whatever is important. Here's when the shoe drops. You know I'm going to say now, don't you? How much adaptability are you changing to be with your brothers and sisters. I know. I get it. It's what's important. Adapt your schedule in order to make priority for the things that are important. There's no other way. You gotta not only change your environment, but you gotta change your schedule. And it's tough. I mean, let me put it this way. It's tough to wake up on a Sunday morning, right? But it's so easy to wake up on a Sunday morning when, I got to take the kid to another state for fill-in-the-blank sports activity. Adapt your schedule. Adapt your schedule to the King's way of doing things, not yours. The last thing that I think it's very, very practical to do is join a team and hire a coach. Join a team. When professional sports players, like in your American football here, when they take on the uniform, they make a big deal after, like, okay, now we have signed such so-and-so person. They here with the press, and they put on the uniform. They bring the uniform out, like, here's your uniform. And then the coach sets them down and say, look, you're putting on this uniform. And when you put this uniform, you are representing me. As a coach, when you put on this uniform, you are representing this franchise. You are representing a lot more. So, when you represent, make sure that your life is in alignment with. Jesus does the same thing. When you become a follower of Jesus, you put on that uniform. And when you put on that uniform, that means that you are expected to live in a certain way. You are expected to change your environment. You put on that uniform, no more eating ho-hos. Eat right. Yeah? Change your environment. You put on the uniform, I expect you to be here at the scheduled time to throw a football around. I don't know what they do. Jesus does the same thing. You're part of his team. You adapt your environment, change your schedule, adapt your schedule to his rhythm, then join the team. By the way, there's no Lone Ranger Christians. No Lone Ranger Christians that are by themselves. I can be a Christian. No, the moment you take a little amber out of the fire and you put them aside away from all the other coals, they will quickly fade. Join the team and hire a coach. And by the way, who's the coach? Well, I happen to be the head coach here in this congregation, but there's other coaches around. Look around. There's plenty of coaches. Maybe you could be a coach. We help each other out. And that is so critical that when we live and we build on the foundation, which is Christ, we build with one another. And that's why the community of being together is so critical. It's so important. How can we possibly be a team if we're not together? By the way, this is our team meeting. You all realize that, right? This is the team meeting. Now, barring, sickness and vacations and all that, I know there's some of you are sick. Still praying for you. Some other people are on vacation. My own wife is out of town, seeing with her parents. But this is our team meeting. Make it a priority. We have Wednesday practice. That's weightlifting, right? You have your team meeting, then you do weights. I don't know who's. Dory knows what weights, right? You do weights sometimes, right? Right. So Wednesday is our Bible study. That's our weights. We do weight. Well, spiritually speaking, it is so critical to not only hear the words, know the words, but to practice the words. Nate, why don't you come up here and let's sing a song, because otherwise I'm going to continue talking and preaching, and I think we'll do another three more hours. So let's come up here, my friend. All right. God bless y'all.